Hey everybody, how you doing? This live stream is based on an email I got this morning from Empower Oakland. And Empower Oakland's a new group. It's a political group, but it has its own website and its own series of articles it puts out, which are really positions on, you know, different, I'm certain you've seen them by now, different subjects that have to do with the Oakland government, like either the budget or, for example, police or crime. Uh, their view tends not to be broader than that. So in that familiar taste or position, uh, this email they sent out said basically that overspending on city employees is the problem. Now, tell me when you've heard that before. Let's see. Pretty much, it seems every year I've been involved with the city of Oakland in some kind of way. It doesn't matter if it's going back to 1985 and I was just hired as economic development intern in the Oakland Office of Economic Development and Employment on what is now the LU at where is now the LU Harris State Building, or when I was columnist for Clarion, or prior to that when I was involved with Oakland Sharing Division, or after both, when I was hired by L.U. Harris to be his economic advisor, or after that, when I formed Oakland's first and only bid to host a Super Bowl game in Oakland's history, or after that, when I started going to be create what became Zenny 62 Media and Oakland's first YouTube partner channel started by me. I can go on and on and on. The song has been the same. And from an organizational perspective, sung by groups that called themselves, hey, Make Oakland Better. That was the most famous group to take the position. Now we have Empower Oakland, which is basically for, all practical purposes, the second, or arguably really entering the third decade of the 21st century version of Make Oakland Better, right? Make Oakland Better was started in the aughts. Anyway, the song is the same. And what's wrong with the song? Well, what is the song? You have to understand before we can say, here's what's wrong with the song. All right. The song is, again, spending more for salaries of employees than comparable cities in California. All right. And that's really the first mistake because, as you know, the Bay Area consists of three of the most expensive to live in cities in the United States. That includes Oakland. So logically, you can't compare another similarly sized city in California, even if it's of similar population. Why? Because it is less expensive to live in. What's going on with Oakland is turnover of employees introduces new employees, be they police employees or fire or public works and so on. And those employees get the, if you will, dibs at the higher salaries because they're new and those salaries were set for those positions because that's considered to be what is necessary to live, comfortably in Oakland and do a great job for the city of Oakland. That has been the case for a long, long time. And that is true today. So they keep focusing on it, but the theys, be they Empower Oakland or Make Oakland Better, never ask the real question. What's the driver of needs that causes our employees to be paid what they're paid? It's because it's not just population size. No one ever looks at, for example, the high and rising crime rate at the time, which it was for this pandemic. No one looks at the crime rate, how historically high it's been with respect to cities for Oakland's time from 1980 till today. All right. No one ever looks at that. And we don't have a discussion regarding economic development. let's take what's happening right now with economic development around the world. Well, really, that's not fair. Around the United States. The average American city has, of its total revenue, 30% comprised of what are called ad valorem taxes or property taxes. All right. Property taxes you pay if you're a homeowner or a condo owner, property taxes. Now, that's 30% is the average. But do you know what the average is for Oakland? It's 15.2%. Yeah, half. Half. Now, by contrast, let's take a city like Orlando. Orlando, known popular city, healthy budget, managed to weather the pandemic storm, pretty well. All right. Orlando takes in of its entire total budget in terms of revenue sources, 47% is represented by property taxes. Think about that. 47% versus 15.2%. That means Orlando has a more robust source of revenue that's less likely to be as volatile as, say, sales taxes over the long run, let alone over a run of, say, 3 to 5 years. But Oakland has a flimsy one. The local taxes, of which are represented sales taxes, clocks in at just an additional, all right? All right, think about it. An additional percentage that's roughly equal, 14.8%, roughly equal to what is taken in for property taxes, but together they barely equal 30%, which is the average for property taxes alone in the entire country. In the entire country. All right. So, how do we fix this? It's simple. No, we don't increase the millage rate because people are stressed enough paying taxes and high housing costs. All right. Be they the mortgage holder or, for example, renters that are paying into mortgages on multifamily homes that are extraordinarily high. It doesn't matter. We're all impacted one way, directly or quasi indirectly. Okay. So, no, the answer is that we have to increase the population of people. Why? Because take a look at Orlando. Because you would say, Zinni, why did you mention Orlando? Because it has a tourist base. Do you realize that Orlando has an annual visitor rate of 74 million people? That's right. It took in 74 million people in 2022, and then it took in 74 million people, 2022, and then it took in 74 million people in 2023. It has rebounded remarkably from the pandemic when in 2020, its visitor rate dropped to 35 million. Scary low number for a city like Orlando. But even then, greater by double than Las Vegas, which takes in just north of 40 million annually. But these are cities that depend on visitors for a healthy share of their revenue. But also, Orlando has, think about it, a property tax base that is almost 50% of its revenue. Oakland needs to build more high dollar assessed value buildings. How do you do that? Manufacturing, automobile plants, big buildings where people make things, big buildings where people assemble. But guess what we're considering doing? There are people who at one point wanted to tear down the Coliseum. We've chased away the Raiders, the A's, and the Warriors. And we don't seem to have any problem with smaller organizations like the Oakland Ballers or the Oakland Soul, essentially in those venues or new venues and being held up as taking the place of these major sports organizations, when in point of fact, they're not. We don't have boxing activity in Oakland. We don't have major tennis programs. We don't have a sports commission to get these events that then draw visitors and gets us smartly into what is called the sports tourism industry, a new industry. We don't even think about it. We don't talk about it. Our economic development process arguably doesn't exist because we don't even have, do you realize we still don't have an economic development strategy at all? None. We don't. We're rudderless. The city put out an RFP for an economic development consultant, got no response last fall. Zero. How do I know? I called, I checked. All right. Now they're trying to do it in house. But how long does it take to do economic development strategy that, in point of fact, you're not going to implement anyway? You're just going to use it to justify what you've already done, which is really nothing, and then not show that you actually know how to pull the levers of government to get Oakland's economy going. So you're going to spend a lot of time writing a study at a time when people need you to do the work. The study can write itself as you're doing the work. All right. That's where the city is. That's the state the city is in. We have Eastmont Mall, which at one point was flooded, is virtually unused to this day. It was once a General Motors auto plant. Did you know that? That's right. So for those of you who would say, hey, those are going to cause environmental problems, my response to you is technology. Use systems to mitigate negative environmental impacts from manufacturing. We brag about technology. We talk about artificial intelligence and all of this. Enough of the talk. It's time to apply these systems to make our lives better in Oakland so we can have a better economy that helps more people. And we need to increase our base of lower income and middle income people who can work, because that will force us to get our housing costs down. And those folks can also serve as musicians and waitresses and waiters and business owners and small business creators. And we can focus on mating them with the new opportunities in the new entertainment economy we built. We do not have an Oakland Live here, like LA Live. We have nothing like that. We have to get serious about building our economy and say, okay, what budget targets are we after? And use those budget targets as a raison d'etre, as the way to mold our economic development strategy, and then do it. Get the money out there using tax increment financing via enhanced infrastructure financing districts to businesses that need them right now. Be serious about what we're doing rather than scoring political points. We're in big trouble. And what I'm saying is going to get us out of it, because we've had decades of the other way. And folks, it hasn't worked at all. Our property tax has grown at roughly the rate of 5.5%, Arguably, it needs to be double that. It did grow significantly over the past year, but if you look over the 10 years, it has really been just barely what we need, as opposed to significantly above and beyond what we need to cover our costs. A entertainment industry, a tourism industry that's healthy and thriving, new developments in manufacturing, large scale buildings, convention centers on the scale of Moscone Center will get us there. But this small ball that we've been playing with economic development has got us into a great deal of trouble. It's got to stop. Thank you, and subscribe to Zenny62 on YouTube and bookmark Oakland News Now online. That ends this broadcast.